Hey everyone, and welcome back. So today we're going to be reviewing Figment 2 Creed Valley on the Nintendo Switch. Now this game is an isometric action-adventure game. It was released on March 9th of 2023, and it currently sells for $24.99 on the Nintendo Switch eShop. The game is published by Bedtime Digital, and it has a download size of 1.5 gigabytes. Now this game is a sequel that I was really looking forward to, because I really loved the original Figment. But that also means I had quite a few expectations for this game. Now, did it live up to them? That's what we're going to find out in today's review. Now, just before we jump into the review, a quick reminder that at the end of the month of March, we're going to be giving away a Nintendo Switch OLED. So don't forget to leave a comment down below for an extra chance to win. And while you're at it, why don't you hit that like button? So just as in the original Figment, your whole adventure takes place inside what would be a representation of the human mind. You play as the physical embodiment of courage named Dusty, whose main objective is to chase away nightmares. This time, however, your character has matured and is in the middle of a moral dilemma, throwing the moral compass out of whack, and to make things worse, a maniacal jester is also on the loose causing havoc. So it's up to you to set the compass straight and stop the jester, helping your mind through this time of turmoil. You also get more story exposition through the collection of purple memory orbs in the levels, giving you a glimpse of the real-world problems affecting the owner of the mind. Now, without any spoilers, I do want to mention that I found this storyline quite gripping, and especially if you are a gamer more in your late 20s and above, most likely you will feel a resonating connection to it, or at least parts of it. Personally, I found this to be my favorite part of the whole experience, and the genius way of giving physical forms to aspects of our psyche was just as magical as in the first game.
We need to capture the jester.
I'm not sure there'll be much.
So as mentioned previously, the game plays out as an isometric action-adventure game alternating between puzzles and combat. And your first thought will probably go to Zelda for comparison. However, one very important difference to note is that the experience here is very linear, with very little freeform exploration and no actual backtracking possibilities. The game is separated into individual chapters, and if you replay a chapter, you must reset the progress and follow the storyline as if it's your first time. This is also what leads to a much stronger narrative, supplemented by fully voice-acted characters. Combat is pretty straightforward and geared towards only using two buttons: dodge and attack. Enemy variety is fairly low, however each one has a very distinct pattern and tactic to defeating them. The good news is with the game having an approximate runtime of about 3 to 4 hours, and the puzzles, which we will discuss shortly, taking up most of the time, this low variety works out perfectly and doesn't end up feeling repetitive. I also would mention that I consider the combat on the easier side, but nonetheless very satisfying. The actual only true negative about the combat is that there were a few instances where performance issues and frame rate dips were causing what I would consider to be unjust damage. As for the puzzling, they were the majority of the gameplay time, and I'm glad to say they were very varied, especially for a game on the shorter side, with my favorites being an almost Sherlock Holmes-inspired deductive investigation area, and also a maze that forces you through a variety of back-to-back alternating puzzle types. The performance issues also had no direct impact on these sections, although still were sometimes noticeable. The boss fights were also a definite high point of the game, with them singing to the music as you fight them. However, they were so good that it felt like there were too few of them, with only about 4 to 5 encounters, with repetitions of the two same bosses. However, with different patterns and challenges each time you meet up with them. Unfortunately, once again, especially for the later boss encounters, they were plagued by the same performance issues that did slightly diminish the enjoyment. Overall, we have a short yet very satisfying game that uses its assets, although low in number, in a masterful way to craft a great experience, but for the moment, at least in the Switch version, as mentioned earlier, it is somewhat diminished by technical issues. Still very playable, but diminished. So moving into the visuals first, this is going to be a difficult section. Now the art style is the same as the first game, and it was amazing then, and it's still amazing today. It's beautiful and one of a kind, mixing in elements of steampunk with storybook, feeling almost like a Brothers Grimm tale come to life. But with a warm and welcoming tone thanks to the color palette. So art design is fantastic, but this is where it gets hurt by the performance issues throughout the whole game. It suffers from frame rate drops, and some sections it is definitely more present than others. And for some, this will be a deal breaker and will put them off of the game. On my end, I still found it very manageable. And because most of the game is puzzles, the gameplay isn't affected for those sections, and also for most of the combat sequences, it was not enough to prevent me from enjoying the combat. I do want to mention, however, that there is one chase sequence where I did feel slightly hamstringed, and rather than it being a visually spectacular payoff moment for the game, it unfortunately highlighted its major shortcoming. Now if we switch to the sound, well, it was fantastic. Even having original voiced songs for the bosses, and also the tone is slightly different than the first game, with less of a heavy metal vibe and slightly more of a folklore feel to the music. Honestly, I really can't find any complaints here. So overall, we have a game that art-wise looks great and sounds great, but is let down by its performance, however, not in a game-breaking way. Now it's time for the verdict. And if this is one of the first reviews of mine that you're watching, my full review scale is available down below in the description of the video. And in the case of Figment 2 Creed Valley, I'm going to be giving the game a 7.5, putting it at the high end of a good game. Now overall, even though there were some performance issues with the game, I really did enjoy my playthrough. And for me, the positives definitely outweighed the negatives. However, I nonetheless reflected the state of the game in the pointage I just gave. Because if the game was running at 100% smooth as butter, you know what? It would probably wind up with an 8.5, maybe even a 9. I also do want to mention that this game is available on other platforms. And if you don't mind sacrificing the portability, you might want to look into that. However, at the same time, I still have my fingers crossed that maybe a patch will be released and iron out some of the issues on the Nintendo Switch. So now I want to hear from all of you. Are you going to be picking up Figment 2 on the Nintendo Switch? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget, on the way out, if you did like the video, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and click on that notification bell so you know when all my future videos come out. And as usual, I hope I'll see you in my next video.